from two fixed points, which are called the foci, is constant. So this one's a little bit harder to understand than the circle and the parabola. So let me see if I can help you understand it a little bit. So forget these formulas for a second, just look at this picture. Do you guys agree that an ellipse is an oval? Okay. So what this definition means is you take any point on that ellipse and you find the distance to both of the foci.
God bless you.
I just found those two distances and I add those distances up. Let's say those distances that added up to the number 7. So the total distance there is 7. What that means is if I were to pick a different point on the ellipse and do the same thing, those distances will also be 7. That's what it means by they'll stay constant. Find the center, vertices, foci, and graph this ellipse. So this is my equation of an ellipse. Is this in the correct form? Yes. Now here's what we want to do. The first thing I'm going to identify is whether or not this is a vertical major axis or a horizontal major axis. So take a look. What do you guys think? Is this going to be longer in this direction or longer in this direction? Horizontal. Horizontal direction, right? Why is it going to be longer in the horizontal direction?
25.
Bigger numbers under the x, right? Okay. So this is going to be a horizontal major axis. That's what it's called. They call it major because major is bigger. Minor would be the smaller one. Okay, so that's the first thing that we noticed. Excellent. We know it's going to be longer in the horizontal direction. The other thing I want to notice is what all my A, B's, and C's are. All these lovely things. So what I have is I have a kind of circle, right? It's circle-ish. It's just an oval. So I'm still going to have a center, just like I did for the circles, right? The center actually wasn't one of those, part of those formulas, just because the center is the same thing as everything else. I didn't want to stress you out by adding that as well. So it's really the same thing. Don't overthink the center. What is the center of this ellipse? Just think normally. 1, comma, -2. X, comma, y?
Oh.
H, comma, k? Same exact thing as it was for the circle, right? So the center is the easy part. Now, I could, if I really wanted to, follow all those formulas, write everything down, and get the right answers. That's fine. But I want you to understand it, not just memorize it. So I'm not going to do those formulas. Not right now. I'll do them later. I'm going to draw the picture first, because it's way easier to visualize an ellipse than it is to memorize a formula. So let's draw the picture. The first thing we're going to do is draw the picture. Okay, so what's the first thing I should plot? The center, right? So 1, comma, -2. 1, comma, -2. There's my C for center. Easy enough, right? Now here's how you graph an ellipse. Just like you do a circle. Only a circle, you have one radius. An ellipse, we actually have 2 different radii. It's longer in one direction and then shorter in another direction, right? So here's how you figure it out. You look at what's underneath the x. What's underneath my x here? It's a 25, right? Isn't that a 5 squared? So that means in the x direction, my radius is 5. In the y direction, my radius is 2. Let's do that again. In the x direction, my radius is 5. In the y direction, my radius is 4. So this is the x direction. So I start at my center, and I'm going to go how many units over? 5. Because under the x was a 5 squared. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to go 5 in the other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You guys see that okay? And then how many units am I going to go in the y direction?
2.
2 units. So I still from the center. So from the center up 2, down 2. See how that was the y direction, the x direction? Then all you do is connect it like an oval. Drawing an ellipse is easy. It's supposed to be more oval-y and less football-y, but that's the best I got. Questions on that? That's easy, right? Graphing is easy. Then what you want to do is notice that the vertices are the ones in the longer direction. Those are not called vertices. These are called vertices. The vertices are the ones in the longer direction. Does that make sense? So instead of trying to copy that vertice formula down, it could take you all day. Let's just write down what the vertices are. We now know them because I drew the pictures. So what are the vertices? Just look at this point. What is this point right here?
2, negative 2.
Negative 2. Okay. I took my x direction and I moved it 5 units over. Took my x direction and I moved it 5 units over. What's the other vertice? I got to take my x direction, move it 5 units in the other direction. So this guy was, what was it? Negative 4. Negative 2. Can you guys see how I didn't have to look at that formula? I could just look at the picture and those are my vertices. Don't try to make that harder than it is. Life is already hard enough. I really just don't think staring at formulas for the next 2 weeks is going to help you understand those concepts. That'll help you way better. So far, so good. Okay, now what's the next thing I need to find? Foci. And now after that whole big conversation, there's no other way to find the foci other than to use those formulas. Sorry. But we can do it. We can find the foci. The foci, let's look over here. I'm looking, let's see, horizontal major axis, right? The foci has this number c involved in it, right? And that c comes from this formula. And I could spend a long time explaining to you and proving to you why that formula works, but I'm going to really, really hope that you'll trust me, because I just don't have time. Do you guys trust me? Some of you do? Anybody not trust me? You're all not going to say yes to that because you don't want to watch me prove it, right? So you're going to trust me then. All right, so here's the formula. C squared equals a squared minus b squared. Yes, it really is a minus for the ellipse. Don't get it confused with the other formulas. Okay, so c squared equals, what is my a value in this problem? 5, right? A was the bigger one, so b would be 2, which means a squared is 25 and b squared is 4, right? Does that make sense? So then that means that my c squared is 21, right? Which means my c value is what?
Wait, what?
Square root of 21. Forget the plus or minus for this case because for foci it's not going to matter. Just think about it. You guys okay with that so far? Okay, so then to find your foci, for the vertices, and first of all, not even for the vertices, just look at your picture. It's longer in the x direction, right? So it's the x value that's going to change. So you do the 1 plus root 21, the y value stays the same. 1 minus root 21, the y value stays the same. You still start at your center. The x value changed because it's longer in the x direction. Or you could have copied down that formula and that would have been fine too. Ta-da!
So we have 2 foci.
That is correct. That is correct. You have 2 foci. How do we graph those foci? The foci are inside your ellipse, always. So somebody get out your calculator, and somebody tell me, I'm going to rewrite this as a decimal. What is 1 plus the square root of 21? If you don't mind, I don't have my calculator with me.
5.582.
What is 1 minus the square root of 21?
Negative 3.582.
So as I graph those, that's the 5 point something, 1, 2, 3, 5 point something, comma, negative 2, negative 3 point something, comma, negative 2. Can you see that your foci are inside your ellipse? Your foci have to be inside the ellipse. If you drew your picture and your foci were outside the ellipse, you've done something wrong along the way. Any questions so far? These guys. Same question, different equation. 9x squared plus 4y squared plus 54x minus 8y plus 49 equals 0.
No.
Yes. This is a good one. Is this in the correct form?
No.
No, definitely not in the correct form, right? No, the correct form we know has to have 1 on one side and all the x's and y's are on the other side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the same way we did for these circles and parabolas, we had to complete the square to get it looking like this, right? So I'm still going to have to complete the square to get it looking like this. I'll deal with the division later. So I'm going to want all the x's next to each other, and then all the y's next to each other. And all the numbers on the other side. So let me just do that. All the x's next to each other, and then all the y's next to each other, and then all the numbers on the other side. So rewrite this. 9x squared plus 54x. Does that put all the x's next to each other?
Mm-hmm.
And then I got plus 4y squared minus 8y. Does that put all of the y's next to each other? What about on the other side of the equal sign? What will I have?
Oh, it does change, okay.
Yeah, because I'm bringing it to the other side, so I had to subtract it. Excellent. So far, so good. Questions? You sure? You positive? Now's the time. Okay, so now what do I have to do? What's it called again? Completing
Complete the square.
the square. So let's look at just those x's. What do I got to do to complete the square? Take the middle number divided by 2? Wrong.
You can't.
You can't do it yet. What do I have to do? Factor out a 9 first. You cannot complete the square until there is no coefficient in front of the variable squared. So I factor out the 9 first. And actually, I'm going to do this in the same color. Factor out the 9 first. And that's going to give me x squared plus what? 6x. 54 divided by 9 is 6. Plus, am I going to have to do the same thing for the y's?
Yeah.
What do I factor out of the y's?
4.
4, which is going to give me y squared what? Minus 2y. 8 divided by 4 is 2. I still have this negative 49 on the other side.
And you said we have to factor first because we can't have a number in front of the coefficient of
The squared.
the square?
You cannot have a number in front of the squared.
Okay.
I'll say it mathematically. You cannot have a coefficient that's not 1 in front of the variable squared. That's the mathematical term. I'll edit everything else out of the video, so it's only mathematical. Okay, what do I do next? Now I complete the square. Take middle number divided by 2 squared. Right? So here I got, take this middle number, divided by 2 squared. And that's going to go here, right? Which in this case is going to be what?
9.
A 9. So do I have to add 9 to the other side? And wrong.
81.
Say it again.
81.
Why do I have to add 81 to the other side?
Multiply first half.
Yeah. This is technically a 9 times 9.
Oh, wow.
You guys see that? So it has to be an 81 to the other side. Okay, next. For the y's. Same thing, right? Take the middle number divided by 2. Square it, and that's going to go here. So in this case, that's a plus 1, right? On the other side, what's it going to be?
4.
Because this number times this number gives me 4. Now, could I simplify? Absolutely. This becomes 9 times, this factors into the x plus 3 squared, that whole thing, plus 4 times, this factors into the y minus 1 squared, that whole thing, equals, then we simplify. Negative 49 plus 81 plus 4 becomes what? 36. Good job. Are you guys comfortable with that? Here's the next step. Do we have the correct form now?
No.
So, should I subtract 35 from both sides?
Yes.
Divide by 36.
No.
Divide by what?
36.
36. You guys got it. Divide everything by 36. And why are we doing that again? To get 1. To get a 1 on the other side. All right. Are there questions on anything that I've done so far? Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this. Those fractions will definitely reduce, and I will get an x plus 3 squared over what? 4 plus a y minus 1 squared over what? 9 equals what? 1. Okay, so from here, I went to there. Now am I in the correct form?
Yeah.
Oh, good, finally, now it's going to okay. Center, foci, vertices. What is the center of this ellipse? the next thing I need to do is find the vertices, right? I could find the vertices right now, or I could do what? Let's graph it first. A little easier. My center is -3, 1. We'll see for center. So what is my radius in the... Oh, you know what I didn't ask ourselves? What did we forget to ask ourselves?
This was a sideways or?
Yeah, horizontal or vertical major axis. I forgot to ask ourselves. Sorry. So look at your final version. Is this a horizontal major axis or a vertical major axis? Why is this a vertical major axis?
Well, why?
See, it's not too bad when I'm working through with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means right now, as soon as you leave class, you're going to go home and do your homework while it's
Yeah,
still fresh in your mind,
totally
right?
this time, yep.
Because otherwise you're going to lose it all.
I won't make that mistake again.
Nobody, like, I got like one person saying yes, right? Does that mean that some of you guys aren't going to do your homework right away? I'm so confused. Why not? Work. Work? Oh, okay. So you have lives? All right. What do I do next? What is the radius in the x direction? 2. Why is the radius in the x direction 2? Because underneath the x is a 2 squared. So, da-da-da, da-da-da. 2 units over.
What is radius in the x direction? Is that what you said?
What is the radius in the x direction is the question. And the answer is 2, because underneath the x is a 2 squared. The radius in the y direction would be what? 3. So that means I'm going to go up 3 and down 3. And then I'm going to connect that as a perfect oval. And it has to be perfect. If you guys have it not perfect, you will lose it. You can think of the straight face. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Okay, so what are my vertices? Are these 2 my vertices? No, my vertices are these ones, right? The vertices are the ones in the longer direction. Vertex, vertex. So what are my vertices? Just look at those points. This looks like -3, -2. And the other one it looks like is -3, 4. You see that okay? The other thing that we have to find is the foci. And how do we find the foci? I'm going to actually, because I'm going to want to not run out of space. So I'm going to use this formula to find my C value. So C squared. What is my A value in this example?
2.
Wrong. What is
Oh,
my A
3.
value?
3.
3. The bigger number. A is the bigger number. A is the bigger number. So 3 squared is 9, right? Minus. What is my B value? 2. So 2 squared is 4, right? Which means my C squared is what? 5. Which means my C is square root of 5. Perfect. So in order to find the foci, is the x direction going to change or is the y direction going to change?
The y.
Why? Why?
Because it's bigger.
Because it's vertical, right? So the y direction is going to change. So the -3 is going to stay, and then I have a 1, so it's going to be 1 plus the square root of 5, and then it's going to be 1 minus the square root of 5. And you can plug that into your calculator to get some decimals, but you would get 2 points over here. That would be called the foci.
So, real quick, I'm just trying to get this
Okay.
wording down.
Okay.
What is the radius in the x direction? And we know this because it's underneath the what again?
Underneath the x. So the question is
Oh,
what?
underneath the x. That's what I was missing. Okay.
Yeah. Questions so far? Okay. I have another one. A little bit harder. Still an ellipse though. Okay. So here's our next example. So this is my negative 4, 2, my positive 4, 2, right? Those are my vertices, which means because those are the vertices, it's going to be longer in the horizontal direction, right? Does that make sense? So the first thing that we know is this is going to be a horizontal major axis. And for these types of problems, your job is to write down every bit of information you can. Don't just think it, write it down. There we go. I found out it was a horizontal major axis. Excellent. Now again, looking at my general sketch here, if these two guys are my vertices, the center would have to be right in the middle. Is that right? So I do know that that's going to have to be my center. So could I find out what the center is here?
Mm-hmm.
What is my center? Right smack in between these vertices. What's it going to be?
0.
0, 2, right? See how that would be the 0, 2 right smack in between? Notice the y value stayed the same, and that's because this is a horizontal major axis, so only the x values are changing. The y value really does stay the same.
So it's the center is, we know why it's 0 because it's between the 4, but it's a 2 because that just stays the same.
Because it stayed the same here, so it has to stay the same here.
Okay.
That's correct. Okay, so I found the center, right? I also know the foci, right? So I'm going to have to use some information for there. But I'm not, for me, like let's pretend we've never done this before, right? Because we haven't. I don't know off the top of my head where I'm going to use that foci. So why don't instead we just write down the equation that we already know? We know what it's supposed to look like, right? It's a horizontal major axis. So what is the formula for the horizontal major axis? I'm just going to write that down. X minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1, right? Just wrote that down. So then I'm going to start filling in everything that I know. So slowly but surely you're going to start filling in everything you know. Do you know, well, how about this? How about you tell me, what do you know? H and K. Why do you know your H and K?
The vertices.
Because of the center. So what's my H in this case? 0. What's my K in this case? 2. See how I'm just slowly but surely filling in what I know? What else do I know? I know that this is a horizontal major axis, right? So that means the bigger number is going to have to be underneath the x. So how far do I know that a value? So here's something I want you guys to have written down, this sentence that will help you later on. I'm going to write this down, and I want you to write this sentence down as well. A is how far the vertices are from the center. That is something that we should have written down to remember. A is how far away from the center. It's not 2 or 4. This is my center. This is my vertice. It went 4 units away, right? Which is how I know my A is 4. Right? Which is how I now can replace this A with 4 squared. That'll turn into a 16. You guys see that so far? So see how I almost got that entire equation? I'm only missing the B, right? So what information that's given to me have I not used yet? The foci. So what do I know about the foci? I do know that every time I tried to find the foci, I had to use that c squared equals a squared minus b squared, right? So let's use that again. So here's something else that I want you to write down that's going to help you for these types of problems. C equals. C is how far the foci are from the center. And now here's the thing that might bother you guys. If you guys are the type of people, and don't be ashamed if you are, because I bet all of you are, the type of person who likes to click that view an example button, right?
Yep.
They make this into a very, very long mathematical, like a whole page, just to say this. So don't make it so hard on yourself. Like, go back to your notes when you're trying to do that homework before you put that view an example.
Okay.
Okay? So they make it so much harder, and life is not so hard. You got to understand why things work rather than staring at a bunch of formulas on it. Okay, so this is C is how far the foci are from the center. So where are my foci? These are my foci, right?
Mm-hmm.
Negative 3 and 3. My center is here at 0. So what is my C value?
3.
3. It's how far away it is, right? So then all I have to do from there is use the formula. C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So that means that 3 squared equals 4 squared minus B squared. Because my A was 4 and my C was 3, now I could solve for what? B. So this becomes 9 equals 16 minus B squared, right? So then that becomes B squared equals 7, or B equals the square root of 7. Bear with me, believe me, I did solve that correctly, I promise. At least I think I did, I hope I did. I tried really hard to. So now I got my B equals the square root of 7. So what's going to go here? Square root of 7 squared, right? So then what you have to do is you take all that, all this guy, and you just rewrite it. Simplified version. X minus 0 is just x. 4 squared is 16. Y minus 2 squared, root 7 squared is 7, equals 1.
I missed the step after you were writing this 9 equals 16 minus B squared. What did you do right after that?
I just solved for...
Yeah, I mean, like right after that, then you did
I
what?
solved for B, and then I took the square root of 7, and I plugged it into where
Oh, right
B
there.
was, because B
Square root
was
of
right
7.
there.
Okay.